Hey, welcome to The Explainer. We're all about breaking down big, complex topics one slide at a time.
You know, for most of us, that question brings up a really specific image from a very specific time.
Yeah, probably something like this, right? The gray, dusty plains of the Apollo missions. You see those iconic images of Armstrong and Aldrin at the Sea of Tranquility? That landscape has pretty much defined how we see the moon for what, over 50 years now? But here's the thing, that's the old destination.
Because humanity's next giant leap, it's aimed right here, the Lunar South Pole. And let me tell you, this is a completely different world. We're talking stark shadows and just immense potential. It's rugged, it's mysterious, and it's the new focal point for our return to the moon.
So, you gotta ask, why the big change of scenery? Why are the Artemis missions going there now? Well, it turns out, this specific spot, it might just hold the key to our entire future in deep space.
So why the South Pole? Well, it's not just some random landing site. It's basically the most valuable real estate off-world. And it all comes down to two things: sunlight and water. You see, because of the moon's slight tilt, you get these peaks that are almost always in sunlight, perfect for solar power. But right next to them, you have these super deep craters that are in permanent shadow. They haven't seen the sun in literally billions of years. And those shadows, we think they hold huge amounts of water ice. And water, well, that's not just for life support, it's rocket fuel.
And that right there, that's the big shift. The goal of the Artemis program is to build a sustained human presence on the moon. This isn't about just planting a flag and coming home. This is about staying. It's about building. It's about using the moon as a launch pad to get to Mars. And all of that is only possible because of that water and sunlight. But, of course, with all this valuable stuff up for grabs, it brings up a huge problem. A problem we haven't really had to deal with since the 60s. We're talking about the moon's legal gray zone. I mean, who owns the moon? And maybe more importantly, who owns the stuff you find there?
All right, so to understand this, we've got to look back at the foundational law of space, the Outer Space Treaty from 1967. This thing was a masterpiece of Cold War diplomacy. Its whole purpose was to stop any one country from just planting a flag and claiming the moon as their own. It basically says the moon belongs to everybody. It's like a giant international park that no single nation can own.
But here's where we run into old rules and new problems. The treaty is super clear. You can't claim land on the moon. But what it doesn't say is whether you can own the resources you pull out of that land. See, the treaty is over 50 years old. It was written when just getting there was the big challenge, not setting up some kind of mining operation. And that silence, that ambiguity, well, it's created a kind of legal Wild West for space.
So, to try and tame this Wild West, the United States and its partners have come up with a new playbook, the Artemis Accords.
Now, it's really important to get what these are. The Artemis Accords are basically a set of principles for how to behave on the moon. They are not a formal treaty, like the old one. Instead, they're a set of agreements, a political commitment. And here's the catch. If you're a country and you want to partner with NASA on the Artemis missions, you have to sign on. It's like, if you want to ride with us, you got to play by our rules.
So, what's in these accords? A lot of it is stuff you'd expect. Be peaceful, be transparent, share your science data. Pretty standard stuff. But there are a couple of core ideas in there that are, well, they're new, and they're pretty controversial.
First up is this idea of safety zones. Okay, picture this. You've got multiple countries, multiple private companies, all trying to dig for ice in the same crater. Things could get messy, right? A safety zone is basically a way to manage traffic, to keep one mission's rocket exhaust from blasting another one with dust and rocks. The US is really clear on this. They say it's not a claim of territory, it's just about not bumping into each other.
Okay, so that's safety. But the second, and honestly the most critical piece, is how the Accords deal with those resource rights we talked about. This is where things get really interesting.
The Accords basically say, and I'm quoting here, the signatories affirm that the extraction of space resources does not inherently constitute national appropriation. Okay, so what does that legal jargon actually mean? It's their direct answer to that 50-year-old problem. It means, no, you can't own the land itself, but the stuff you dig out of it, the water ice, the minerals, that's yours. You can own it, you can sell it. This one sentence is basically the legal foundation for an entire future lunar economy.
So, as you can probably guess, this bold interpretation has created a pretty clear divide. It's basically drawing new lines for a new race for space.
And you can see that divide right here. On one side, you've got the United States and this growing coalition of partners, Japan, Canada, the UK, dozens of others. But on the other side, you have the notable non-signatories, Russia and China. Russia's take is that the Accords are too US-centric, and China, They're not happy with what they see as a unilateral American move to set the rules for everybody else. They think this should be done through the UN, not just by Washington.
So, look, this isn't just some dusty legal debate. What we're really seeing here are two competing visions for our future in space. You have the US-led framework, built on these partnerships, and then you have this alternative path, which is still being figured out, but it's likely going to be led by a China-Russia bloc. It's a fundamental disagreement about how humanity is going to operate once we leave Earth.
Which all leads to the big question, right? As we reach for the stars, can we actually agree on the rules of the road before we get there? Because the answer, well, it's going to determine whether space becomes a place of peaceful cooperation or a new frontier for conflict. And that question isn't going to be answered in some courtroom here on Earth. It's going to be answered right there, on the frozen, shadowed surface of the Moon.